My name is Marcus, and for 14 years, I believed I had the perfect life, loving wife, 2 beautiful kids, a quiet home in the suburbs. But that illusion shattered the moment I discovered a hidden phone, and with it, a secret life she thought I'd never uncover. What started as a gut feeling turned into undeniable proof: lies, betrayal, and a man I had never met, yet knew everything about me. I didn't just catch them, I confronted him, face to face. You might think you know how this story ends, but I promise you, it takes a turn no one saw coming. I didn't catch them in bed. It wasn't anything cinematic. It was subtle, insidious. A slow unraveling of trust that began with the cold shoulder and ended with a text I was never meant to see. I confronted her one Friday evening while the kids were at a sleepover. She cried, begged, swore it was over, said it was a mistake, that she wanted to fix things, that she still loved me and didn't want to lose what we had. I wanted to believe her. God help me, I needed to believe her. We started couples counseling. We even did individual therapy. It felt like the grown-up thing to do, the path people take when they're trying to heal something worth saving. She said all the right words. I want you. I'm committed. I'll earn back your trust. She gave me access to her phone to show she had nothing to hide, but added, please don't sneak through it. I need to feel trusted, too. At the time, I wanted to be that husband, the one who doesn't spy, who offers grace and patience. So, I didn't look at first, but something inside me couldn't settle. That gnawing feeling when someone says all the right things, but their eyes don't match the script. I noticed how often she'd turn her phone face down, how the texting never stopped, though she insisted she had cut off all contact with him. And then, a lucky accident, or maybe fate. I was on her iPad, helping our daughter with a school app, when I noticed her messages app syncing. Dozens of texts, none of them visible on her phone. She was deleting them, but they were still on the iPad. It was him, Derek, the man who helped dismantle our life. They were still talking. Every day, sometimes all day. Sweet nothings, little check-ins, jokes, plans. She had told me they were done, that she'd blocked him, that they were over. But the truth? The truth was that she was lying every step of the way. I didn't confront her, not yet. I wanted answers. I wanted facts. I wanted proof. I began pulling phone records, and sure enough, call after call to the same number. I quietly copied everything: screenshots, logs, texts, every breadcrumb. My hands trembled as I collected it, each moment of betrayal captured in digital ink. But that wasn't enough. I didn't want to just catch her. I wanted to see the man she'd betrayed me for. I wanted to look him in the eyes. So here I am, parked outside Derek's house at 6:47 a.m., sitting in my car with the heater blowing stale air across my face. I know his routine. Rachel's mistake was thinking I wouldn't be smart enough to check her calendar. She'd mentioned an early dentist appointment and a girls' morning walk with her coworker. But I knew better. That walk wasn't on her friend's calendar. It was on Derek's. I plan to follow him if he leaves. If his wife leaves first, I'll knock on the door. I've rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my head, but nothing prepares you for the reality of watching the man your wife sleeps with step outside in his bathrobe, sip coffee from a mug, and check the weather like it's just another Thursday. I sit there and think about the last few months, how I've played the dutiful husband while she played the grieving sinner. I cooked dinner while she texted him under the table. I kissed her forehead while she promised to be better. And I believed it, even as my soul screamed no. My phone buzzes. A message from Rachel. Hope you're having a good morning. See you tonight for therapy. The irony makes me laugh out loud in the car. Therapy? What a joke. I wait a little longer. Then, around 7:12, I see her. Rachel, stepping out of Derek's front door with her hair pulled back and a gym bag slung over her shoulder. She leans in, kisses him, and heads to her car like nothing in the world is broken. That was it. The final image I needed burned into my mind. I don't follow her. I get out of the car, walk straight to Derek's door, and knock 3 times. He opens it, stunned. He knows who I am. He tries to speak. I cut him off. We're going to have a little talk, I say, pushing the door open. That morning, I recorded our conversation. I got the confessions. I got the full story, everything she hadn't told me. And later that day, in the middle of our scheduled therapy session, I'd use it. Because the next time Rachel tells me she loves me, she's going to be holding divorce papers in her hands. And this time, I will be the one walking away. I didn't sleep the night before the therapy session. Not a wink. I laid in the dark with the sound of Derek's voice playing over and over in my head. His pitiful excuses. The way he said her name like she belonged to him. How he smirked when he said, "She always comes back to me." That smirk alone was enough to make my blood boil. But I kept my cool. I didn't punch him, though every fiber of my being wanted to. I just sat there, calmly recording, asking questions like a lawyer in a deposition. The more he talked, the more disgusted I became, not just with him, but with her. With how easily she could look me in the eye and lie. With how she could wrap her arms around our children, pretend to be a devoted wife, and then sneak out to be with him. I planned every detail for the next day. My lawyer had prepared the divorce papers a week ago. They were in my briefcase, signed and ready. My therapist knew what I intended to do. She had given me no advice, only support. "Do what brings you peace, Mark," she'd said. "Closure matters." So when Rachel and I sat across from each other in the therapist's office that day, I didn't wait for the session to begin with pleasantries. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "I talked to Derek yesterday." Her face froze. Her mouth opened, then shut. She blinked, confused. "You did what?" she asked, trying to smile like I'd made some mistake. "Yeah," I said. "I talked to him, and he told me everything. Everything you've been doing while I've been trying to save this marriage." She looked to the therapist, then back at me. "Mark, I don't understand. What are you talking about?" I opened my bag and placed a folder on the table. I didn't hand it to her. I let it sit there like a weapon. Text logs, call records, GPS data. Oh, and a video. Him admitting it all. He said you two never stopped seeing each other. Silence. Her eyes filled with tears. And still, she tried to deny. "He's lying. Why would you believe him over me?" "Because the phone records match his story," I snapped. "Because I watched you walk out of his house yesterday morning. Don't insult me with more lies." She started to cry, real gut-wrenching sobs. But I didn't flinch. I had cried enough for the both of us. The therapist, calm as ever, gently said, "Rachel, this is your opportunity to tell the truth." Rachel's voice cracked. I never wanted this to happen. I was confused. I felt lost, alone. Derek was he was someone to talk to. "No," I said, finally handing her the divorce papers. "He was someone you chose to betray me with. And now I'm choosing to end this." She took the folder like it was radioactive. Her hands shook. "Please, Mark, don't do this. We can fix it." We were making progress. "We were making progress because I believed the lie," I said. "But you kept poisoning the process. You weren't trying to save this marriage. You were trying to string me along while you kept seeing him behind my back." She looked to the therapist, desperation painted across her face. "How do I fix this? I don't want a divorce. I want my husband." The therapist sighed. "Rachel, when a person's words and actions don't match, it's the actions that reveal the truth." We left the session in silence. In the parking lot, she grabbed my hand, begging for forgiveness, pleading for one more chance. I pulled my hand away. "This was your one more chance. And you spent it with him." Back home, I changed the locks. I packed her a small overnight bag and left it on the porch. When she arrived an hour later, she looked exhausted, pale, like she hadn't breathed properly all day. She didn't say a word at first, just stared at the door, then at me. "You can't kick me out," she finally said. "I'm not," I replied. "You can take half the money, get a lawyer, and figure out your next move. But you're not staying here tonight. I won't let the kids see you like this." She collapsed to the ground, sobbing again. I didn't comfort her. "Not this time. I told your parents what happened," I added quietly. "They know everything. And they're expecting you." Her sobs turned into rage. "You told my parents? You humiliated me." "No," I said. "You did that to yourself." She eventually left. And as I watched her drive away, I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel triumph. Just grief. Grief for what we had. For the woman I thought I knew. For the family I believed we could still be. But I also felt something else, something that had been missing for months. Clarity. This wasn't the end of my life. It was the beginning of reclaiming it. The house was too quiet after she left. The kind of silence that doesn't bring peace, but unease. I sat on the couch with a drink in my hand, staring at the front door like I expected it to swing open and bring back everything I'd just torn apart. But that door stayed shut, and the air hung thick with the weight of betrayal. Later that evening, I went into our bedroom, my bedroom now, and locked the door behind me. I couldn't sleep. My mind replayed the scene over and over again. The tears, the pleading, The pure disbelief on Rachel's face as I handed her the divorce papers. The woman I had loved for so long looked like a stranger. A stranger who had set fire to our life, and then cried when the flames finally consumed her. The next morning, I did what I knew I had to do. I called Derek's wife. I didn't expect her to answer. She hadn't picked up the day before when I left the voicemail. But this time she did. Her voice was calm, polite, but guarded. "This is Olivia," she said. "Hi, my name is Mark. I left you a message yesterday. I need to speak with you in person. It's about your husband and my wife." A pause. I could feel her hesitation. Is this about an affair?" "Yes," I said. "I think you deserve to know everything. I'll answer any questions you have. I'll even show you proof." She agreed to meet that afternoon at a quiet park not far from her office. Neutral ground. Public, but private enough for what I had to say. I brought a folder with the call logs, the text records, and the short video clip of Derek confessing. It was all there, curated, precise, undeniable. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting alone at a picnic table, clutching a coffee cup with both hands. She looked up as I approached, and her face was unreadable, composed, but on the edge of something dangerous. I sat down across from her and said, "Thank you for coming. I wish it were under better circumstances." She nodded slowly. "How long?" 3 months that I've known. Longer than that for them." Her jaw clenched. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I hesitated. "Because I was trying to save my marriage. I thought if I kept it quiet, if I gave Rachel the chance to come clean and change, we might stand a chance." But she never stopped seeing him. She just got better at hiding it. I laid the folder between us. "Everything's in here. If you want to see the video, I can show you." She didn't speak, just opened the folder and scanned through the contents. The moment she saw Derek's number next to my wife's dozens of times, I saw the crack in her armor. She blinked fast, then slammed the folder shut. "I knew something was wrong," she whispered. "He's been distant. Cold." I asked him and he lied. "Every time." "I know what that feels like," I said quietly. We sat there for a moment, two people gutted by the same blade. Then she asked, "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because you deserve to know who you're married to. And I didn't want to be the only one drowning in lies. You deserve the truth, even if it hurts." She looked up at me, eyes shining but hard. "Thank you, I think." She didn't cry, not then. She stood, thanked me again, and walked away with the folder in her arms like it weighed 1,000 pounds. When I got back home, Rachel was already there, sitting in her car, waiting for me. As soon as I stepped out, she exploded. "You told Olivia? You told his wife? What the hell is wrong with you?" I didn't flinch. I'd been preparing for this. Yes, she had the right to know, just like I did. Rachel stormed toward me, furious. "You're trying to ruin my life." I laughed, bitter and exhausted. "You ruined your own life the day you decided to sneak around behind my back." She burst into tears again, her voice shaking. "I made a mistake. A horrible mistake. But I don't deserve this." I stared at her. "You deserve the consequences of your choices. That's all this is." She tried to push past me into the house. I stopped her. "Not today. Not until we figure out custody and next steps. You can come by tomorrow for your things." She didn't argue, just stood there sobbing, the fight drained from her. As she drove off again, I realized something important. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't numb either. I was angry. But beneath that anger was something new, something like strength. A realization that I had let love blind me for too long. And now, with every truth exposed, with every lie uncovered, I was finally starting to see clearly. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept dragging me back to Olivia's face, stoic but broken, as I laid out the evidence of her husband's betrayal. And then there was Rachel, raging and sobbing in the driveway like a tornado made of guilt and denial. All of it swirled in my head until the early hours of the morning. By the time the sun rose, I felt hollow. But there was no time to be hollow. There were kids to think about. That morning, I picked up our 2 children from school and brought them home. They could sense something had changed. I tried to keep it together, tried to be the steady presence they needed, but even they could feel the tension creeping through the cracks. They asked where their mom was, and I gave them a carefully rehearsed version of the truth. She was staying with Grandma and Grandpa for a few days to help out around the house. My youngest just nodded. My oldest stared at me like he knew there was more. Rachel didn't come by that day, but I knew she would. And she did, 2 days later. She arrived quietly this time, dressed in sweats, her hair tied back like she hadn't slept either. Her eyes were puffy, but there was no fire in them anymore. Just smoke and ash. I let her in, but only into the living room. I told her she could take whatever personal items she needed, but she couldn't stay long. The kids were out with friends, and I wanted to avoid another emotional explosion. She looked around the house like it was unfamiliar to her, like she was walking through a memory instead of her own home. Her fingers brushed the back of the couch, the edge of the photo frames, the kitchen counter. I caught her staring at the family portrait we had taken 2 years ago, just before the chaos began. She reached for it, then stopped, her hand trembling. "Mark," she whispered. I didn't respond. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did," I said flatly. "Over and over again." She nodded. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I still love you." I never stopped. I looked at her then, really looked. And I saw a woman who had once been my partner, my best friend, the mother of my children, now reduced to a stranger grasping at pieces of a broken past. "You might love me," I said, "but you didn't respect me. And that's not a marriage." Tears welled in her eyes again. "Can't we just try again? For the kids? For us?" I shook my head. Trying again would mean pretending none of this happened. "I can't do that. I won't lie to myself anymore." She sat down on the couch, her shoulders hunched forward, silent tears falling. I gave her space. I went into the kitchen and busied myself with absolutely nothing, just so I didn't have to watch her fall apart. Eventually, she got up and gathered some clothes, her laptop, a few personal keepsakes. Before she left, she stood in the doorway and turned back to me. "You're really done, aren't you?" "Yes," I said quietly. She lingered there for a moment, then stepped out and closed the door behind her. The silence that followed wasn't oppressive this time. It felt like exhaling after holding my breath for too long. That evening, I sat the kids down and told them the truth. Not the brutal, adult version. Just enough for them to understand that things were changing, and it wasn't their fault. My oldest took it better than I expected. My youngest cried and asked if Mommy would come home soon. That one hurt. I held them both, promising that they were loved, and that no matter what happened, they'd always have a home filled with love, even if their parents lived in different ones. The next day, I called my lawyer. It was time to make it official. I gave her the green light to file everything. I'd waited long enough. I had proof, I had clarity, and now I had resolve. Rachel could cry, beg, even say all the right words, but they meant nothing when her actions had screamed the opposite. I spent the rest of the week preparing, changing passwords, separating finances, opening my own bank account, updating emergency contacts. It felt like dismantling a life piece by piece. Every password reset, every form filled out was like peeling off another layer of the life I'd once built with her. But it wasn't all pain. There was also a strange freedom in it, like finally stepping out of a prison I hadn't realized I was in. I still had moments where I broke down, in the car, in the shower, in the quiet hours after the kids were asleep. But they were becoming less frequent. Each time I cried, it felt more like release and less like collapse. I was grieving, yes, but I was also healing. The days after Rachel left the house felt surreal. The quiet was no longer suffocating. It was a strange kind of peace. I was finally in control of something again, no longer a passive participant in the collapse of my own marriage. But even with that control, the pain was still there, humming in the background like a wound that refused to close. I focused on the kids. School drop-offs, bedtime stories, helping with homework. The little things that reminded me of who I was outside of being a betrayed husband. I kept the routine stable for them, even if everything else was falling apart. Rachel didn't come around much that week. She sent a few texts asking how the kids were, if I needed anything, if we could talk. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I needed space. And every time I saw her name on my screen, it reopened every cut I'd worked so hard to stitch closed. Then came Friday. We had a therapy session scheduled that day, one of the last ones we'd committed to before everything finally unraveled. I wasn't looking forward to it, but I went. Not for her. For closure. For myself. She was already sitting in the waiting room when I arrived, her eyes swollen and red, tissues clenched tightly in her hand. I nodded at her, not out of kindness, but acknowledgement. I didn't want her to mistake it for hope. When we sat down with the therapist, she jumped in immediately. "I've made mistakes," she said, her voice already shaking. "I know that. but I've been doing everything I can to fix them. I stopped talking to him. I deleted his number. I blocked him on everything. Please, Mark, don't give up on us. I stayed quiet. The therapist asked if I had anything to say. I don't believe you, I said. Even if all of that is true, it's too late. You had your chance. You looked me in the eye while lying to me again and again. Now you're asking me to believe you've changed just because you say you have. Rachel's lip quivered. I was scared. You should have been scared the first time you snuck around behind my back. Not now. Now that your little fantasy life is crumbling. Her tears came fast, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. I already filed the paperwork, I told her. The papers are in motion. This is happening. She went silent. For the first time in a long time, she looked like she had nothing left to say. The therapist suggested we talk about how to tell the kids. That part hurt more than anything else. Trying to explain to our children that their home would no longer be the same, that their parents weren't going to fix what had been broken, that was the real devastation. Rachel offered to move out fully after the weekend. She said she'd found a place to stay with a friend, at least temporarily. I agreed. The sooner we stopped pretending we could cohabitate peacefully, the better. That night, I sat in my office, going over the finances one last time. We had shared everything, bank accounts, passwords, even retirement plans. Untangling it all was like pulling roots out of concrete. Then my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rachel. I know you hate me. I know I ruined everything. But I still love you. I always will. I stared at the screen for a long time, the words burning into my mind. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room. Another part of me wanted to respond. Not with love, just with acknowledgement. But I didn't. I simply powered off the phone and poured myself a drink. Saturday morning came with tension in the air. Rachel arrived to pack the rest of her things. The kids were out with my sister, so we had the house to ourselves. I stayed in the kitchen, giving her space, but I could hear her moving from room to room. The zip of suitcases, the creak of drawers, the occasional muffled sob. Before she left, she stopped by the kitchen. I'm sorry, Mark. For everything. I nodded, still refusing to look her in the eye. Take care of yourself. She stood there a moment longer, then turned and left. As the front door closed, something shifted inside me. Not relief. Not joy. Just quiet. The storm had passed, but the damage it left behind would take time to clean up. That night, I put up the Christmas tree with the kids. They asked if Mom would be coming home for Christmas. I told them no, that this year would be different. But different didn't mean bad. We'd still have gifts, cookies, movies, and love. Always love. I sat back, watching the lights blink softly through the pine branches. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe, just maybe, I could breathe again. The days leading up to Christmas felt surreal. The house was quieter now, like it was holding its breath with me. Rachel had officially moved out, and the kids were adjusting to the new rhythm of life, one parent at a time. I could see the confusion in their eyes sometimes, the way they looked at the empty seat at the table or paused before asking if Mom would be joining us. I answered gently, consistently, not today. I was determined to make this Christmas feel warm and memorable, even if it would never be the same. I pulled out the old decorations, untangled the lights, and let the kids hang ornaments where they pleased, even if most of them ended up clumped at the bottom of the tree. We played Christmas music and baked cookies from frozen dough, pretending we were chefs. It was messy and imperfect, but it felt real. Then came the message. Rachel texted me late one night, 2 days before Christmas. Can I come by to see the kids? Just for a bit. I missed them. It was expected, but still jarring. I stared at the screen, trying to decide what part of me would respond. The father, the ex-husband, or the man still trying to rebuild from the wreckage she left behind. I agreed, under one condition. She could come over only while I was present, and there would be no conversations about us. She arrived the next evening, bearing wrapped gifts and a carefully practiced smile. The kids lit up, rushing to her arms. I stayed back, watching the scene like I was viewing it through glass, familiar but unreachable. After a while, we sat down in the living room. I poured hot chocolate for everyone and turned on a Christmas movie, trying to maintain a semblance of peace for the kids' sake. Rachel sat beside them on the couch while I took the recliner. She didn't say much at first, but then, during a quiet moment when the kids were giggling at the screen, she looked over and whispered, "Thank you for letting me come. I know you didn't have to." I gave her a short nod. It's for them, not for us. Her eyes dropped. I understand. I was about to say something else when the front doorbell rang. Odd. No one ever came by unannounced. I opened the door to find a small package sitting on the welcome mat. No label, no sender. Just a white box with a red ribbon. Inside was a small flash drive and a note. You deserve to know everything. A friend. I brought it inside and plugged it into my laptop in the kitchen, out of sight from Rachel and the kids. A folder popped open. Photos, screenshots, and voice recordings. It was everything. Messages between her and her affair partner, phone call recordings, even a voice memo from him talking about how long it had gone on. Some of the files were time-stamped from after she swore it had ended. I clenched the table's edge until my knuckles turned white. All this time, I had been giving her space to explain, to come clean, to show some level of remorse beyond tears and soft words. But this proved what I'd suspected deep down. She was still hiding things. I copied the entire folder to my own drive and stored it under a name she'd never notice. Then I returned to the living room, face unreadable. Rachel left not long after. She hugged the kids goodbye and said she'd see them after Christmas, giving me a look I didn't return. I locked the door behind her and went to bed with a rage I hadn't felt in weeks. The next morning, I called her. "Rachel," I said, my voice low and cold. "You told me it was over. You looked me in the eye and said you were done lying. That there was nothing else." There was silence on the other end. I got proof. From someone who thought I deserved the truth. I saw the messages, the calls, the recordings. She started to stammer. Mark, I didn't know." "No more excuses," I said. "You lied to me again. After everything. I wanted to believe you, Rachel. I really did. But this is the nail in the coffin." She cried again, pleading. But the words didn't matter anymore. I told her that from now on, all communication would go through my attorney. That I would seek full custody. That the grace I'd shown her up until now was gone. And for once, I didn't feel guilty. That night, I sat with my kids by the tree. They were busy playing with their toys, unaware of the quiet war I had just declared to protect what was left of our family. I watched the lights flicker and made myself a promise. No more chances. No more lies. This was the end of her chapter in my life. I'd burned enough trying to hold on to something already reduced to ashes. Now, it was time to rise from them. The morning after Christmas, everything felt hollow. The house was still, the aftermath of wrapping paper and open toys left scattered like remnants of a war no one saw but me. The kids were still asleep, exhausted from the excitement. I sat alone at the kitchen table, sipping black coffee and staring at the silent phone in front of me. I knew something was coming. I could feel it in my bones. It arrived at 10:17 a.m. "Rachel." She called once. I didn't answer. Then again, and again. The fourth time, I picked up, not out of curiosity, but because I knew dragging this out would only give her more space to twist things. "Mark," she said, her voice already trembling. "Please, we need to talk." "I don't think there's anything left to say," I replied flatly. "I know what you found. I know you saw everything. But please, just hear me out. Not over the phone. Please, face to face." I considered hanging up, but a strange calm took over me. 1 hour. Neutral ground. Coffee shop on Main. When I arrived, she was already there, waiting nervously at the corner table. Her face looked worn, makeup smeared under her eyes like she'd been crying for hours. When I sat down, she tried to offer a smile. I didn't return it. "Before you say anything," I started, "I want you to understand that nothing you say will undo what you've done. I'm only here because you begged." She nodded slowly. "Fair." Then she launched into it. Her confession. Rachel claimed the affair started because she felt invisible after our second child. Said she resented the routine, the lack of passion, how I poured myself into work and parenting and left no space for her. The affair partner, Derek, had made her feel seen, desired, wanted. But it was a mistake, she insisted. The biggest mistake of my life. I tried to stop. I wanted to stop. But he manipulated me. He told me things, said you'd never understand, that you didn't love me anymore. And I was weak enough to believe him. I stayed quiet. Not because I believed her, but because I wanted her to keep talking. Her mouth kept moving, but it all blurred into noise. Justifications. Deflections. Desperation. Then came the plea. "I want one more chance, Mark. One real chance. No more lies. I'll sign over everything. The house, full custody, you name it. But please, don't give up on us without trying." That's when I leaned forward, hands folded. I already tried, I said coldly. I tried when I forgave you the first time. When I went to therapy. When I looked past the first betrayal and gave you access to my heart again. And what did you do? You spit on it. Her lower lip trembled. I know. And I don't expect forgiveness overnight. But I'm begging you. No, I cut in. I'm not the man you can beg anymore. I stood up and left her there, surrounded by whispers from strangers who had no idea what kind of storm had just passed through that cafe. That night, she made her final move. A message popped up on my phone around midnight. A photo of a note, handwritten, filled with heartbreak and apologies, and a blurry selfie of her at the hospital. Rachel had taken pills. Her sister found her in time. She was alive. I stared at the screen, frozen. Part of me, an older version of myself, ached. But the version of me now? He was angry, furious. This was her last card. Her final play. The next morning, her father called. He was solemn, apologetic. She's going to be okay, Mark. They're keeping her under psychiatric observation for a while. I hope she gets the help she needs, I replied. But I won't be visiting. Not now. Maybe not ever. I understand, he said softly. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve this. After that, I packed away what was left of our life together. Photos, gifts, her wedding dress. All of it went into boxes marked for storage or trash. The house felt lighter when I was done, as if the very walls had been waiting for me to purge the weight she left behind. I met with my attorney that week. We finalized the last filings, custody arrangements, property division, spousal support terms. With Rachel now unemployed, I agreed to a temporary stipend for the kids' sake. But once the divorce was complete, she'd be on her own. I gave everything she asked for. The house, the car, the silence. In return, I got myself back. No more secrets. No more chances. Just me, my boys, and whatever life awaits after the accident. This isn't about revenge or power. It's about liberation. The court date arrived on a gray Tuesday morning in March. The sky matched my mood, cold, indifferent, void of anything hopeful. I sat outside the courthouse in my car, watching the people pass by, trying to imagine how many others had come through these same doors to end something they once thought would last forever. Today, it was my turn. When I walked inside, Rachel was already seated with her attorney. She looked thin, gaunt, even. Her hair was pulled back tightly, her face drained of the defiance she once carried. Now, she just looked broken. She avoided my eyes. The proceeding itself was short. We had already agreed to nearly everything in advance. The judge asked a few routine questions, confirming the terms. I answered clearly, with no hesitation. Rachel's lawyer tried to squeeze in a last-minute appeal for leniency on the alimony timeline, but my attorney shut it down with the same cold, factual tone I had mastered over the last few months. When it was over, the judge gave a small nod and announced, "Divorce granted." Just like that, 15 years of marriage ended in under 15 minutes. I didn't look at Rachel as I left the courtroom. I didn't stop when I heard her whisper my name. I kept walking until the heavy courthouse doors swung shut behind me and the cold air hit my face. It was done. Later that night, I sat with my boys in our new apartment. We ate takeout on paper plates, watched some dumb action movie they liked, and laughed like we hadn't in months. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't pretending. I was actually happy. After the movie, they went off to their rooms, and I found myself alone again in the quiet. I stared out the window, looking at the glowing city, thinking of how far I had come. There were days I thought I wouldn't survive. Nights I wanted to scream, to tear it all down. But I held steady. I stayed true to myself. And now, standing on the other side of the wreckage, I felt peace. Then, there was Nina. She had been there quietly the whole time. Never pushing, never pressuring. Just showing up when I needed someone most. We met for coffee the next day. She walked in, radiant as always, with that calm energy that steadied me. She smiled as she sat across from me. "It's official," I told her. She reached out and touched my hand gently. "How do you feel?" "Lighter," I said. "Like I've finally stopped bleeding." She nodded, no words needed. We stayed like that for a while, just sipping coffee, two old souls finally meeting where they were always meant to. A few weeks passed, and I started building again. Not just routines and furniture in the apartment, but pieces of myself I had buried during the chaos. I went back to the gym, started writing again. I even took a trip up to the cabin with my sons. just the three of us, surrounded by trees and silence. We grilled, fished, and stayed up late talking about life. They were healing too, in their own way. Then, something happened I didn't expect. One evening, out of nowhere, I received a letter, handwritten, from Rachel. It wasn't angry. It wasn't manipulative. It was quiet. She apologized again, without excuses this time. She admitted everything. Said she took full responsibility for the pain she caused. She wrote that she didn't expect forgiveness, and she wasn't asking for reconciliation. She only wanted me to know that she understood now what she destroyed. At the end, she wrote, "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I'm sorry I wasn't the same for you." I sat with that letter for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just folded it carefully and placed it in the drawer with the few other relics of a life I no longer lived. Closure wasn't about words. It was about letting go of the need to understand. That weekend, Nina and I took a walk in the park. The air smelled like spring. I watched her laugh with my youngest, her presence as natural in our lives now as sunlight. And for the first time, I wasn't thinking about what I lost. I was thinking about what I'd found. A future I never planned for, but one I was ready to walk into. That was the real ending. Not the divorce, not the affair, but the choice to live again, love again, and never forget who I became through it all. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do after being broken is to rebuild better than before. After everything I've lived through, I've come to realize that betrayal doesn't just destroy relationships. It forces you to face truths you once ignored. The first lesson I learned is to trust actions, not just words. People can say anything, but their consistency, or lack of it, reveals their true intentions. I also learned that forgiveness isn't about weakness or forgetting. It's about releasing yourself from the weight of bitterness so you can move forward. For those of us entering our later years, the time we have becomes too precious to waste in resentment. If someone breaks your trust repeatedly, it's not your job to fix them. It's your responsibility to protect your peace. And above all, I learned that starting over isn't failure. It's a chance to reclaim your identity, rebuild with stronger foundations, and surround yourself with people who truly value you. Whether you're 30 or 70, you're never too old to choose dignity over despair. Life will hurt, but with patience, support, and self-respect, healing is always possible. That's the legacy I want to leave, not of a man who was broken, but of one who stood tall after the storm.